John Wesley could hardly be called a faint-hearted, stay-at-home kind of guy, and yet there were times even in his life when he was afraid for his life. During one of Wesley's many journeys across the Atlantic Ocean, a fierce storm rose up, threatening to capsize the entire ship. While Wesley and many others clung to their beds or anything else solid they could get their arms around, John Wesley looked up and he saw a family of Moravians seated peacefully and calmly reading Scripture and singing praises to God. It was in this moment, as he watched those Moravians so apparently undisturbed by the storm that raged around him, that he realized for the first time in his entire life he was witnessing a truly storm-proof faith. This became a transforming experience for John Wesley. From that moment on, he began to pray that God would fill him with the faith and the courage that he had witnessed in those Moravians on that day. For us, as we gather here today in the house of the Lord to learn more of His character, we want to pause and ask ourselves one very important question. What was it that made those Moravians so peaceful in the midst of a mighty storm? What was it that enabled them to sit calmly and peacefully and sing praises to their Lord while the storm raged around them? What was it that gave them peace in the storm? What they possessed during that storm is the same thing the disciples did not possess during their storm. And what the disciples lacked and the Moravians had was a concrete, unshakable faith in Jesus Christ. After Jesus stretched out His hands and quieted the storm, He immediately turned to His disciples and He confronted them. Why do you think He did that? He did that because the disciples, in cringing and crying out to Him in fear, had revealed the true shallowness of their faith. And they missed the true miracle that Jesus wanted to share with them that day. They missed it. Now some of you might be thinking, now hold on just a minute, what do you mean they missed the miracle? What greater miracle could there possibly have been? They were there. They witnessed firsthand the miracle of Jesus calming the storm. It must have been so amazing to witness as He stood up, stretched out His arms, and said those words, "Quiet, be still." How amazing it must have been to see the immediate response of nature to the voice of God's Son. Jesus speaks, and the winds are calm, the waves are peaceful, the clouds clear, the sun begins to shine brighter than ever before. What a phenomenal miracle, right? Absolutely. But it was not the miracle that Jesus wanted to share with His disciples that day. What was the true miracle? The true miracle that Jesus wanted to share with them that day, the miracle that Jesus wanted them to experience firsthand, was not the miracle of Him calming the storm that they were in, but rather calming them in the storm. Not calming the storm, but calming them in the storm. He wanted them to have enough faith in God that even in the midst of a mighty, raging tempest, They could look at Jesus as their example and know in their hearts that everything was going to be okay. Verse 38 of our text tells us something amazing. Verse 38 says, Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. Can you imagine? Jesus was setting an example. But the disciples made the mistake of believing that because Jesus was peacefully sleeping on a pillow in the stern of the boat, that he was blissfully unaware of what was going on around him. They made the mistake of believing that he was oblivious to the storm that surrounded him. They saw him sleeping there, and they thought to themselves, doesn't he care about us? Here we are going through this life or death situation, and he's asleep. Doesn't he care if we live or die? And they missed it. They missed the true miracle that Jesus was modeling right before their very eyes. The miracle of experiencing peace within the storm. Now, before we are too hard on the disciples, think about how we do the same thing all the time, don't we? We find ourselves in the midst of a sea of difficulty and struggles, and we don't see God. He isn't calming the storm in our lives. He isn't answering our prayers fast enough. And so we assume he must be asleep. He must be up there with his head propped up on a cloud, snoring away. And we begin to think, doesn't he care about me? I'm drowning in debt. My marriage is in shambles. I lost my job. My car just got repossessed. My life is in shambles. I don't know if I can hang on much longer. Doesn't he care if I perish? What Jesus wanted to share with his disciples then, and what he wants to share with you today, is the miraculous peace that results from a concrete, unshakable faith in Jesus Christ. A faith that is so strong that in the midst of what appears to be a titanic situation, we can find such true inner peace that we can curl up in the stern of the boat, rest our head on the pillow, and be confident beyond all doubt that God will see us safely through to the other side. This is the faith that those Moravians so bravely demonstrated